Hey everyone, welcome to Mushihimesama for the Xbox 360. This is a Maniac 1cc, and if you've been following my social medias, all that good stuff, Discord, Twitter, even the YouTube channel, you'll know that this is actually not my first 1cc. I got one last night after a 4-hour grind stream from hell where I was feeling pretty sick but feeling motivated to try and get it. And I just sat down and refused to move till I got the 1cc, and I did about 5 hours later. I got it. But during the actual run, the final run where I got it, my stream died on stage 4. We're actually near the end of stage 3. So there was no stage 4, there was no stage 5 in the recording. And that's kind of the critical part of the run, right? It's an incomplete run without those. And then the Xbox 360 did not ask to save the replay or anything like that, so I walked away with a pretty killer score because I missed all of stage 5, but no video to go with it, and I was feeling real salty about that. But I've also been kind of tired of doing the run, so afterward I was like debating with myself, okay, do I call it quits and just say, just live with the screenshot and move on to another game? And for about an hour I felt that way, but then about an hour and a half later, I was like, I gotta have the video, right? I want to do commentary of the run, I want to show the run, I want to talk about the game, and having a damn screenshot isn't gonna make that happen. So I gotta do this again. So I went to sleep, woke up this morning, did some work, then I had a bit of a break, and then I said, okay, let's do this. Because I'm kind of have a weird work schedule going on right now, my gaming PC is not hooked up to the internet or anything, but it is accessible, and I had a break. So I just plugged it in, turned it on, fired it up, started playing. Didn't have time for a stream and all that. Plus setting up the stream, all that good stuff. I have my hand cam, so I feel like that always shows it's legit because I've got my hand cam there. So I says, screw it, let's just local record this bad boy and try and get it done. And I was feeling like, once you get a clear, I found you usually can repeat getting the clear pretty quickly because you break a lot of mental barriers. But even still, I didn't feel like, with Mushi, during that 5-hour stream I talked about this was a very strange 1cc because unlike something like Ketsui or DOJ or some of my other 1cc's in the past, it didn't feel like, man, if I just work on my routing, I'll, get the clear no problem. Because I did put quite a bit of work into figuring out the routing and stuff. It was just more like, I need to execute. It was kind of weird. Mushi, I feel like, is a weird game like that, where the routing's important, but it isn't all that important. At least Maniac mode, right? I'm sure Ultra mode's a whole different story, but Maniac mode, my routing was fine enough. It just came down to literally just dodging the bullets, moving this, it came down to execution. And I feel like the thing about this game that makes it a little bit more challenging for me is the execution of the game. So the movement, how you hold your fingers on the buttons, all that kind of stuff is a little bit strange. It's a little bit different than other shmups. And so there's a little bit of a learning curve there, too. So it's kind of interesting 1cc where I felt like any single run could have been a clear, but I had runs that I was game overing in like stage 3. Well, it's basically just resetting the runs in stage 3 and stage 2, and people watching my stream were like, I'm sure some of them were like, okay, I was also not feeling very well, and I warned everyone on at the beginning, like, okay, I'm not feeling very well, I'm probably not going to play very well. But still, it looks like I had no hope of getting the clear, and then one run later, I'm on the last boss, so it's just a very, very momentum-heavy game, I feel like. Extremely momentum-heavy, where if you get bad, especially with me, if you get bad luck in stage 3, it kind of throws me off completely, and then I just keep chain dying and making mistakes and stuff like that. Whereas if like I said, my clear, I missed all of stage 5. I just sat down, had no bombs, and had no choice but to miss the stage, and I ended up doing it. And then I came into the boss with like 2 lives and cleared him with 1 death, and got a pretty juicy score, at least for me. But yeah, that wasn't recorded, so I had to repeat the performance. So speaking of the run specifically now, not too much went on in stage 1, not too much goes on in stage 2. The big mistake I already made just out of my own impatience is that I didn't let these trace options turn into formation. So whenever you get trace or formation options in this game, if you wait, they'll switch types. And for the most part, you want formation, at least me. I like formation better than trace, and I think it's more useful in stage 3 specifically. So the idea is there's no execution involved, is I literally just have to kill the option and then wait as the boss spawns and then pick it up when the boss spawns. No difficulty there, except that I have ADD. I don't actually have ADD, but I definitely am impulsive, and so I instantly just pick it up way more than I should, just out of sheer habit. So that's why I have these trace. It's not en route, but the funny thing is I've done it so many times, I kind of learned how to play with trace. So it's not that big of a deal at the end of things, and I regain the formation halfway through this stage. So I've said this before, and I'll say it again, stage 3, not a fan, never will be. I do not like this stage. The concept is cool, but the execution to me is pretty monotonous. It just feels like you're on a treadmill. I like to think of this as like a treadmill stage. You're just repeating the same thing over and over with slight variations and going back and forth with these little guys flanking you. They almost flank you the entire stage. And so it just feels very monotonous, and sometimes it's one of those stages too where everything starts to blend together, and I have put a lot of time into this stage by now because it's always been a bit of a roadblock for this clear, so I keep practicing it over and over, and I feel like I have it pretty well down, but there's just a lot of elements to the stage that frustrate me. The first being, like I said, it just repeats a lot of the same sections and same sort of enemy formations over and over and over, like this. And then we go into canceling, breaking his wings. Like, the concept is cool, right? Because the concept is the entire stage is you're fighting this boss. You're fighting like this giant bug. Kind of like Shadow of the Colossus. Maybe, I don't know, did Shadow of the Colossus come out before Mushi? But I know they came out around the same time, but it's kind of the similar concept, right? Where the whole stage is a boss fight. This is another element of the stage I don't like, are these parts right here. I cleared that out nice and clean, so I didn't have to deal with it, but sometimes you have to deal with the slowdown in this stage is very what I call slingshotty, which means that it'll speed up and slow down. Speed up like that. You see that? That's a classic slingshot right there, where it'll be slow and then bam, speed up. Slow, speed up. And I hate slowdown like that. I think it's awful. And this stage is full of it. And so another reason I don't like this stage is you have to not only learn the routing for the regular bullets, you have to figure out how to route the slingshot slowdown and stuff. And as Pearl has pointed out to me when we're talking about accurately emulating this on MAME, is that the slowdown of this game is very chaotic. It's not, even compared to Dodonpachi, which I think has pretty chaotic slowdown, this game has even more chaotic slowdown than that. Like how many bullets you're shooting and stuff greatly, if you're using super shot or not, all that stuff greatly impacts the slowdown. And so it just makes keeping yourself consistent even harder. This section right here is the most slingshotty of all of them. And I keep telling myself I'm just going to bomb it every single time. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to bomb here. And you'll see what, see that? That's exactly why, because that happens to me almost every run I decide not to bomb, which is, so that death there, I just was like, I should have bombed, because how it worked is, so that bullet was coming at me, and I was going to cross over it, and it was in slowdown when I started to cross, but halfway through the cross, the bullet just sped up and hit me. And so stuff like that drives me crazy. So what I'm doing here is there's a hidden extend. You have to blow all the claws off, and then you kill the center and you get the extend. Actually, one of the better hidden extend requirements, I feel. It's kind of like DOJ, but with a bug instead of a cannon. So I don't really have too many complaints there, other than I had a run that was absolutely beautiful, much prettier than this run, as you will see. But I ended up dying because I ended up not getting the clear because I didn't get the extend. So this boss fight, I got super familiar. This was my major reset point, was this boss fight, because the patterns are pretty challenging, and that was one of the dumbest deaths I've ever done. So I've died twice in stage 3. So for all intents and purposes, this run should be over, because 2 deaths in stage 3, that's awful. You need lots of resources to get this clear, at least I do. So I didn't even think I could potentially get the clear at this point. But my thinking was that, okay, I need to get past this reset syndrome. And I had played just the run before this really well in stages 4 and 5, so I was thinking, okay, theoretically, this clear is still possible. I just need to play like a beast in stages 4 and 5 and basically not bomb as much anymore. Because what I had been doing is I'd been no missing up to stage 3, but then when I did that, I'd get nervous because I'd have so many resets up to that point that I would get nervous in stage 4 and do a lot of safety bombing. And so my thinking was this, okay, I should have reset that run, but instead of resetting, what I will do is I will play very aggressively in stage 4, all or nothing, rather than just giving up the credit, because if I play really aggressively in stage 4, I can sort of make up for those mistakes by getting rid of safety bombs and stuff. So that's the interesting thing about this run here, is that it's not as good as my run before, where I just basically bulldogged the game and my score is a lot better. I basically just almost no missed the last 2 stages completely. But at the same time, this one is pretty interesting because the stakes are high the entire point. Basically, 1 or 2 more mistakes and the run's over, no matter how well I play, just out of sheer resource management, right? Because I can't no miss, no bomb the entire game at this point. So here we go, stage 3 mid-boss. This pattern here, I had been bombing before out of safety, but no more, right? We need to conserve everything, and I didn't even have a bomb anyway. Sometimes I'll get hit by this pattern during the crossover, but that time for the past few days I haven't, so that's always nice. This pattern here is tough. It's tough for me because it's very claustrophobic visually, where making those precise dodges is actually not that hard. But the problem I run into with that one is my eyes struggle to track that pattern as precisely. I don't know what it is. I think it's just because it's so dense that my eyes really struggle with tracking it. And there are these little needle patterns, these little needle shapes that are even harder to kind of pinpoint the hitboxes as accurately for me. So it wasn't a big deal that I died on that pattern. I wasn't that surprised, but it basically set in stone that I can't die anymore. I just can't. I have to play very well, very aggressively, stay alive at all costs. So stuff like that right there, like I couldn't bomb. I need these bombs, so I'm just gonna have to do a lot of straight up dodging at this point, which I hope is entertaining for the replay at least. So these dragonfly enemies, this section I've gotten really good at. If it's like one of the few sections in the game to me that feels like a bit of a more traditional cave shmup type thing, where it's all about the routing and you can very predictably make things happen. Whereas, like I've said before, the rest of the game, as much time as I put into it, which I have put quite a bit at this point, right? At least 20 hours, if not more. Well, I did that 6-hour stream last night, so it's got to be more than 20 hours, right? It's probably like 50, 80, somewhere in there. And yeah, even after all that, I just feel like this game can be pretty chaotic. This boss is an asshole. And Kiwi has this really cool strat and I sort of started to learn it, but then I was too lazy. So I was like, okay, I'll just resource spam this guy. So the idea is you go up, his strat is basically you go up high and you misdirect a lot of his attacks, which does work well, and I have done it a few times, but here, since I had the resources, I thought it'd be better just to play it safe and spam him. And then I was like, uh-oh, I need to dodge this pattern. Oh, made it through. That was huge. That was absolutely huge. And then I made it through that one. There was some clutch dodging going on there. So sometimes whenever I have moments like that where I go through a bunch of clutch dodges, I actually kind of feel a little bit guilty when I start playing the next stage, because I'm like, I should be dead. My numbers, you know, I just feel like I'm kind of playing like an idiot right now, but my instincts got me through. But will my instincts hold out, basically? Can I keep this up? I always second guess myself when I start to do that. But this stage 5 is absurd. Definitely my favorite part of the run. My favorite stage of the game, bar none, stage 5. I think it's the best stage. I think my theory is that after they made Mushi and they sat down to make Futari, they were kind of like, okay, what was the best part of Mushi? And everyone's like, stage 5. And so they're like, okay, let's make Futari like stage 5, but all the stages. So I kind of feel like this stage feels the most Futari-like to me. I'm not an expert in Futari, but from what I've played, I did get the original clear. I feel like this stage feels the most like Futari, and that's why it's my favorite. Whereas Kiwi likes stage 3, and he likes Mushi a lot, so there must be something there, right? Like, if you like stage 3, you must be an OG Mushi fan. If you like stage 5, you're a Futari fan. That's the theory? So I'm feeling real swag right now. I'm getting through all these patterns with no bombs or anything. So how I'm doing this, if you're wondering, like, how is Mark making all these clutch dodges and getting through these sections? Basically, I have a rough idea of that cancel, man. So I just sat there, and the thing about situations like that, I kind of want to point this out because it might be helpful for some people, is sometimes, especially with like cancels and stuff, when you get in the optimal spot and you see the enemies coming towards you, your instinct is sometimes to actually like to move into them or to move like into a different spot just out of sheer panic. The thing is, though, is that the spot I was in was the optimal point for survival of getting the clear without dying. So what I do in those situations is I actually lift my, like, I don't know if I physically lift my hand off in the replay or not. You'll have to go back and see. But my brain will lift the hand off the arcade stick and say, okay, don't touch the arcade stick. Just hold the buttons and see what happens. If I die, I die. If I don't, I don't. And I actually feel like had I touched that arcade stick, I wouldn't have made that cancel. So just don't do that to yourself. And there'll be more examples like that in this stage, actually. I think this one coming up right... Okay, look at this dodge. I'm so glad I got this on camera. Then I have to go through the wall. Yeah, I was feeling pretty... And then I die right there. Classic, right? Make it through the hard stuff and then die on like some easy point. But I was still feeling pretty good about making that dodge. So this is a tough situation right now because I'm basically on the knife's edge where my fear is going to make me want to use these bombs, right? Because I don't want to die. However, if I'm being realistic with myself, I can't use these bombs unless I absolutely 100% need to, like there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically try and convince myself not to bomb as much as possible. Which, because based on the amount of this is where routing comes in, is very important, because you need to understand how many resources you actually need. And I realized to feasibly get this clear, I need these bombs. big time. So this is the section here. And even though it doesn't look like, because I'm going to bomb through this, but even though it looks like I'm just bombing my way out, there is some routing involved because the bomb needs to be nice and late so I could get through this pattern here without bombing. Right there. Because having that extra bomb, I had a run before this where I literally did not get the clear because I was one bomb short. The final pattern, for me, the final pattern is so absurd. It's like you either have a bomb and get through it, or you don't have a bomb and you die. And I didn't have a bomb, and I actually got pretty close. So there was a mistake. I'm trying to follow Kiwi's routing on this boss, which is that you misdirect these attacks. See, like this? That one was actually really crispy, because I was nice and close and getting a lot of damage in. And this is my route here where I bomb out of this. I just do that every time if I have a bomb. So the trick with this pattern here is to just dodge 2 balls ahead of the balls falling down, the bullets falling down. Instead of doing 1 at a time like you normally do, you just do 2 at a time. And that will really help you a lot. Make that dodge much more consistent. And then I have to get through this. Oh, fun. Made it through though. After I made that dodge, I was like, okay, I think I got this. Because up to this point, still not sure. Even now, I'm like, because this guy has a lot of armor, so you can't necessarily just bomb your way out. This pattern has gotten me so many times. I was so happy to dodge it. Okay, I'm like, okay, now we're looking good. So we point blank him here and get through this. I remember when I got up here, I was like, okay, I think I got the clear now. So my nerves, you can see my hands now, like, you can see I'm getting more relaxed. I died there, but I'm like, not a big deal. Let's spam him out. I'm pretty sure we can do it. So the last thing I wanted was to get surprised attacked. So, yeah, I was really prepared to hammer that bomb button. Yeah, a bit of an anticlimactic ending, but that's because I played so well in Stage 5. I had the resources I needed to just bomb spam that final phase there, which is a big relief. So, there it is, the Maniac 1cc, second time around. Score not as good as my first clear where I had 9, and this one ended up being 7. But I'm glad to have got the video, came back and got the video evidence, got the replay so we all could check it out and watch it. Really fun game. Can be frustrating at times, but when all is said and done, it's definitely a really fun game, one that I really enjoy playing. I'm enjoying now, looking forward to Futari and playing some Futari and comparing the two much more in depth now, right? Because I have the Maniac clear in Mushi, so I want to get the Maniac clear in Futari and compare them and compare which one is harder, which one's easier. I'm thinking I'm going to like Futari more, just to be honest. But, it's the sequel, and I think it's one of Cave's best games, and I know people this year voted on it as the best game of all time. That changes year to year. And I think thanks to Gus, Futari got the top slot. I don't know if it's necessarily the best shmup of all time, but it's definitely in the top 4 in my opinion. Up there with DOJ, Garega, and Ketsui. And so I think from year to year you can kind of swap them around for what how is it fitting in, and I feel like last year was definitely the year of Futari. So a well-deserved win, and I'm looking forward to playing it. It is really cool how many different modes Futari does have. And also keep an eye out, because Pearl and Mariscan, and I'm helping out a little bit here and there, are working on making these later Cave games in MAME more accurate, so that they can be emulated, so that even if you play the 360 port like I do, you can use them to practice and do save states. I did that with Mushi. I used Groovy MAME, and even though it had a little bit of extra lag, not that much more, because I feel like the 360 port of Mushi is average with input lag. I believe it's 3 frames, so it's not as good as Futari. And I believe Groovy MAME's 4. I'm going to double check that today actually, so we'll find out. But So anyway, yeah, it'll be really cool to have that prepared, because then we can practice these games with save states, which is a big deal. So keep an eye out for that. Thanks for tuning in, and before I go, let me thank my patrons, right? Dingo, Anthony A, Ben Wynn, Brian Shiver, Double Vision, Deps20XX, Dunpeel 2064, EC2151, Full Set, Retro Schmupper, Gus, Kiwi, Jacob Spring, Jake Ryan, Neon Daggers, Sent More Apps, Joe Angelo, John, K, Quentin, Maz, Nathaniel Davis, N Electron, Okla Kugels, Omcall, Rysosis, Sugumo, Young Money Swee, Plasmo, Utukaya, Bahoy TV 100, Malaise, and Mayhair Calendrian. Thanks for watching.